They didn't wear ranks. They didn't wear flags. No one even knew their real names. To the outside world, they didn't exist. But if your village ever heard the hum of their dropships, if your skies ever blackened with that unmarked steel, you prayed. Or ran. Or both. Because if they were coming, something worse had already happened. The first time I saw them, I was 13. The planet was Elcar 7, a mining colony orbiting a dying star. My father worked underground, hauling crystal ore with the others. My mother cooked for the guards. Life was small, hard, and quiet. Then, one night, the sky tore open. The sirens screamed. We had drills for this. Invasion drills, pirate drills, even alien incursion drills. But this wasn't that. This was something else. Even the guards were shaking. I remember peeking from under the floorboards, heart hammering like a drum. I saw shadows descend, tall figures in matte black armor, helmets shaped like skulls, glowing red eyes cutting through the smoke. They moved without a sound, like ghosts, but every step was deliberate, heavy, final. There were 8 of them. The miners who had turned violent, dead in seconds, the rebel leader who'd been holding hostages in the South Tunnel, gone without a trace. They didn't ask questions, didn't shout warnings. They just cleaned house like a broom of war. No one knew where they came from, not even the colony overseer. Rumors swirled, of course. Some said they were grown in labs, not born. Others swore they weren't even human, just weapons wrapped in flesh. One thing was certain. When demons started rising from the outer systems, it wasn't the army that got called. It was them. Years later, I'd see them again. Not from under floorboards this time, but from behind a weapon, dressed in fatigues too big for my body, carrying fear like a second skin. We were stationed on Carthos 12, a frozen hellhole on the edge of mapped space. No sunlight, no warmth, just wind that howled like wolves and shadows that stretched wrong. Something was moving in the dark. Something ancient. The regular troops couldn't handle it. Hell, even our sergeants were cracking. Then the call went out. A quiet one, no fanfare. Just one encrypted message bounced through 5 secure channels. They arrived in under an hour. No ship IDs, no comms, just that same unmarked black steel. And that sound, the low growl of their engines that made your bones itch. This time I wasn't hiding. I watched one of them step out of the dropship, boot crunching the snow. His armor looked different, older, scratched and scorched like it had seen 100 wars. A blade was strapped across his back, a blade taller than me. No one used blades anymore. No one needed to, unless you were dealing with something bullets couldn't kill. The thing that had been slaughtering our outposts showed up an hour later. It wasn't a beast, not really. It was intelligent. Tall as a building, claws like sabers, a mouth filled with human voices. It had a name once, something in a dead tongue older than our maps. We opened fire. Nothing. Our weapons lit it up like fireworks, but it didn't flinch. Then they stepped forward. No commands, no strategy talk, just movement. Fast, coordinated, brutal. And what happened next didn't look like war. It looked like execution. The creature screamed, tried to flee, tore through the snow, but it never got far. One of them leapt, faster than physics should allow, and slammed it to the ground. The others followed like shadows, blades and fists and fire. I swear to you, it didn't die quick. And that was the point. It was a message, not to us, but to everything else watching from the void. This is what happens when you touch human soil. I didn't sleep for 3 nights after that. Not because I was afraid. Not really. Something deeper had settled in my chest. Something colder. It wasn't fear of the monster we'd faced. That thing was dead, torn apart by 8 silent ghosts. No, what kept me awake was them, the way they moved, The way they fought like they'd done it 1,000 times in 1,000 different hells. The complete absence of hesitation, of mercy. There was no shouting, no rage, no thrill. They didn't kill like soldiers. They killed like instruments, blades honed by something darker than training. One of them had turned to look at me afterward. I don't know why. I wasn't the ranking officer. I wasn't even important. Just a scared recon grunt with shaky hands and half a clip left in his rifle. But he looked at me. The red glow of his visor locked onto me for maybe 3 seconds. And in those 3 seconds, I understood something I still can't fully explain. They weren't there to protect us. They weren't sent in to save anyone. We weren't the mission. The message was, let the enemy know what humans do to fear. The next morning, they were gone. No transport sounds. No briefing. No acknowledgement. Just gone. Like a nightmare fading with the sunrise. We found pieces of the monster scattered across the valley, chunks of muscle, shards of bone. But something was off. No blood, no tissue rot. Just pieces, clean and dry, as if they'd been burned from the inside out. Command told us to seal the area, install beacons, mark it as off-limits for future patrols. Unofficially, we were told to shut up. That's how it worked with them. You didn't ask where they came from. You didn't talk about what they did. If you tried, your comms got jammed. If you pushed further, your clearance got revoked. A few brave officers tried to track their dropships once. Both died in transit accidents a week later. Everyone got the message. But rumors? Rumors never died. Especially on the outer systems. Especially when blood didn't make sense and bodies disappeared before medbots could scan them. They weren't called Special Forces by any official channel. That was just what the grunts called them. Some called them the Nameless. Others, Voidwalkers. On Carthos 12, we called them Hell's Front Line. Because if those guys showed up, it meant something had already come from Hell and hadn't been sent back yet. 3 years passed before I saw them again. By then, I wasn't a scared recon grunt anymore. I'd earned my stripes. Tactical recon, special deployment. I had scars on my arms and steel in my spine. Lost 3 good friends on Zira Prime. Lost a whole team on Nomad Station. You grow up fast when every mission is a coin toss with the void. They transferred me to a black site project orbiting some dying gas giant. Codename Tomb Glass. That's all they told me. Tomb Glass was a research facility, they said. Remote, self-sustaining, classified on 13 levels. We weren't told what they were studying. We weren't allowed in half the rooms. No windows, no open comms. You started to forget what sunlight looked like after a few months. But you could feel it, the wrongness in the air. Security was tighter than any military base I'd ever seen. Automated turrets every 10 feet. Retina scans. Vocal locks. Even the janitors were armed. You don't build cages like that unless something dangerous is inside. Then came the breach. I was on Deck C when it happened, running a systems check on one of the pressure gates. All of a sudden, lights turned red, sirens screamed, and every door slammed shut like the station was about to be ripped in half. Emergency lockdown. Full scale. That never happened. Never. I got shoved into a sealed room with 3 other tech officers. No windows, no updates. We sat in silence, sweating and swearing, while the steel around us groaned. An hour passed, then 2. Then the lights flickered, and something moved in the vents. We didn't speak after that. One guy tried to pray. Another just kept clicking the safety on his pistol over and over again. I stared at the airlock, waiting for something, anything, to come through. Then I heard that sound, that low, guttural hum. Not the emergency alarm, not the station engines. It was deeper, like an animal growl mixed with turbine fire. I knew that sound. I'd heard it once on a snowy planet, just before something got torn, limb from limb. They were here. The door to our room hissed open. I stood up before I even knew why. My hands were shaking. But not from fear this time. Something else. Like reverence, like standing too close to a storm. Two of them walked in. Same armor, same visor glow. But their armor looked updated. Bulkier. More angular. One of them had symbols carved into his shoulder plate. Not letters, not numbers. Just symbols. Ancient ones. He looked at me. No words. Just nodded. The other one turned to the vent and raised something. A weapon I'd never seen before. It looked like a cannon fused with a bone. He pulled the trigger. The sound that came out wasn't mechanical. It was alive. A pulse of black light slammed into the vent, and something inside screamed. Not a monster scream, a human one. Whatever got loose in tomb glass used to be one of us. They left the room without another word. I followed. I didn't think. I just moved. My legs carried me down the corridor, past sparking doors and flickering lights. I kept my distance, but I kept my eyes on them. They didn't speak to each other, didn't signal, but every move was coordinated, like they shared one mind. They cleared Deck D in under 6 minutes. What they were fighting, I still don't know. It moved like smoke, shifted shapes, screamed in a dozen voices. At one point, I swear it begged, said it was sorry, said it didn't mean to become this. They didn't care. One of the soldiers grabbed it, not with a weapon, but his hand. His armor morphed, wrapped around the thing like living metal. It screamed and convulsed, tried to break free. The second soldier stepped forward and pressed something against its head. There was a flash. Then silence. Just smoke drifting in the air like ash. They left its body. Or what was left of it, turned and walked away like it was just another job. No cleanup, no statement, just finality. I was the only one still standing in the corridor. And that's when it happened. One of them turned, walked back, and handed me something. A chip. Small. Cold. No label. He didn't say anything. Just stared at me. Then walked away. By the time security got the all clear, they were gone. Again. Like ghosts swallowed by the void. I took the chip to my quarters, locked the door, scanned it in a private rig I built myself, took every firewall I had just to crack the shell. What I found inside wasn't orders, or tech, or weapon specs. It was a memory, a video log, dated 37 years ago, footage from a planet that doesn't show up on any star map I've ever seen. The sky was purple, the ground burned red. A woman was screaming into a comm unit, begging command to send help. She kept saying, "We didn't mean to wake it. We didn't mean to wake it. Please, it's learning." Then static, then blood, then them. The same armor, the same walk. But they looked younger, or maybe just human. The video ends with one of them saying a single line. "Erase the name, burn the map. This place never existed." I sat there, in that steel room, staring at the dark screen, trying to make sense of it. 37 years ago, the same soldiers, same team. That would make them, what? 50? 60? No, they moved like men in their prime. They fought like they were born yesterday. Which left one impossible truth. They don't age, or maybe they don't live like we do. That night, I left Tombglass. Used every favor I had to get transferred out. Filed a request for system patrol on the Outer Rim. People thought I was crazy. Called me a coward for leaving black site work. Said I'd thrown away my career. Maybe I had. But I'd seen something I wasn't supposed to see. And someone, one of them, had wanted me to see it. I think they were testing me, watching to see what I'd do, seeing if I'd bury it or chase it. It's been 4 months since then. And last week I got a message. No sender, no return code, just one line. You followed? Now choose. Attached was a flight coordinate and an authorization code I've never seen before. It was legit. Cut through every security wall like butter. The kind of clearance only top command or ghosts were supposed to have. So here I am, sitting in a stolen scout ship, staring at the dark edge of human-mapped space. That's where the coordinates lead. Past the last star, into the black, into their world, not where they're sent, where they're made, and maybe unmade. The edge of mapped space isn't marked by anything dramatic. No blinking lights, no warning beacons, just nothing. The stars thin out. Navigation systems start returning errors. You try to track known constellations, and they vanish like ghosts from a dream. That's where I was headed. The coordinates they sent weren't on any chart. Not civilian, not military, not even deep classified fringe maps. Just raw data fed into my ship's system. And when I entered it, everything changed. Autopilot kicked in. Manual override locked out. Every system dimmed but one. The engines. It wasn't like any jump I'd ever made. There was no hyperspace blur, no folded light. It felt like the universe paused for a second, like something big, ancient, and angry noticed me, and then let me pass. When I came out, I wasn't sure I was in the same universe. There was no sun, no planets, just a single structure floating in the black. It looked wrong, like it had been built by something that understood gravity but didn't respect it. Part machine, part living matter. No lights, no windows, a fortress carved from shadow itself, a gate. The ship docked automatically. I didn't touch a thing. No voice welcomed me, no AI gave instructions. Just the hiss of the airlock, followed by silence thick enough to choke on. I stepped out, weapon holstered, eyes wide. Every instinct in my body screamed turn back. But I didn't. The corridor was dark, lit only by strips of blue light that pulsed like veins. The walls weren't metal, not exactly. They felt warm, slightly damp, like skin. I walked. 10 minutes in, I started hearing the whispers. Not words, not voices I recognized, just soft sounds brushing the edges of thought, like memory and instinct had found a language of their own. Every step I took deeper into that place made the whispers louder, sharper, more personal. I passed doors, some sealed, some open just a crack. I didn't look in. I didn't want to know, but I felt things watching from inside. Waiting, breathing. One door trembled as I passed it, like it was alive, or afraid. Finally, I reached a chamber, a circle, huge, no ceiling I could see, just darkness that stretched forever. In the center was a platform. 8 figures stood around it, the same black armor, the same red visors. But this time, something was different. They took off their helmets, not all at once, one by one, like a ritual. And what I saw underneath chilled me deeper than anything I'd seen in war. They looked almost human, but not quite. Their skin was pale, marked with veins of black like ink under the surface. Their eyes, not just red, but burning, like coals in a furnace. Their faces were calm, unreadable, no rage, no pride, just stillness. Like statues sculpted by violence. One of them stepped forward, taller than me by a foot, maybe more. No scars, no hair, just skin that looked stretched thin over something too strong to be human. He spoke. You followed. His voice wasn't mechanical, it was layered, like more than one person speaking through the same throat. It echoed inside my skull. You saw, you remembered. You chose. I couldn't speak. Not at first. My throat had gone dry. My heart was a hammer behind my ribs. He stepped closer. Looked down at me. Do you want to know what we are? I nodded. He raised his hand, and the chamber changed. Not physically, but in my mind, like something grabbed my consciousness and ripped it backwards. I wasn't in the chamber anymore. I was standing on a battlefield, not one I'd ever seen. The sky was black fire. The ground cracked with veins of red light. 2 armies stood across a chasm, one of twisted, howling creatures that dripped shadow from their limbs, and the other, humans. But not normal humans. These ones had armor, weapons, but no insignias, no nations. They moved like predators. And when they charged, they didn't scream. They didn't chant. They just descended like judgment itself. The battle didn't last long. The things from the dark were stronger, faster. But the humans didn't care. They fought like they were already dead. Every hit was precise, every movement efficient. They were machines of war, but still too savage to be called machines. I watched one of them rip a creature in half with his bare hands. Another pinned a demon-like thing to the ground and whispered something in its ear before slicing its throat. The creature begged. In 6 languages. It didn't matter. The vision shifted. Now I was in a lab, a cold, sterile room, but with glass that looked like bone and machines that pulsed like hearts. In the center, a man stood over a table, or what used to be a man. He was screaming, wires in his spine, metal where his jaw used to be. His eyes were gone, replaced with red lenses. Too weak, someone said in the vision. He still feels. Purge the empathy. A voice responded, cold, unfeeling. Pain is the mold. Break him again. I turned and saw a symbol on the wall, a circle within a circle surrounded by 8 runes. The same runes carved into the shoulder of the soldier who handed me the chip. They weren't a unit. They were a program, a forge. Project Black Halo. That was the last thing I saw before the chamber returned around me. I was on my knees, sweating, heart pounding like a drum line in my ears. The tall one looked down at me. Now you understand. They weren't born soldiers. They were made, not cloned, not recruited, chosen, broken, rebuilt. The pain, the precision, the silence. It all made sense now. They weren't meant to protect humanity. They were meant to remind it. What happens when fear is allowed to spread? Why me? I finally managed to ask. My voice cracked like old wood. You watched, he said, and you didn't look away. That is the first cut. Another one stepped forward. Female, maybe. Hard to tell. Her eyes burned hotter than the others. You didn't call us angels, she said. That is the second cut. A third approached, his armor scarred more than the rest. You still fear us, he said. That is the final cut. The first one nodded. 3 cuts. That is the shape of the blade. They circled me. One held out something. A weapon. Looked like a knife at first, but the metal shimmered wrong, like it was made of memory and violence instead of steel. You carry this, he said, only if you choose to die. I looked at him. What if I say no? Then you forget, he said, and return to the world as it is, with lies, with safety, with time. And if I say yes? His answer was simple. Then we cut away what you were, and leave only the thing the dark will fear. I stood there, staring at the weapon. It pulsed in his hand, not like a machine, like a heart. Something old inside me stirred, something buried, every fight I'd ever had, every death I'd ever seen, every moment I'd stared at the stars and wondered if humanity had already lost something it could never get back. I reached for the blade. My fingers wrapped around it. It felt like it knew me. The chamber dimmed. The figures stepped back. The whispers grew louder, but now I understood them. They were names. Names of places no longer on maps. Names of battles that were never recorded. names of soldiers who never came back. The tall one looked at me and spoke the final words I'd hear before the world changed forever. "Welcome to the silence." And everything went black. The black didn't feel like sleep. It didn't feel like death either. It felt like dissolving. No body, no shape, no time. Just everything I'd ever been being torn apart in slow motion. Like my memories were pages, and something was flipping through them, deciding what to keep, what to burn, and what to bury. I heard voices. Mine, others, screams, orders, cries, laughter, then silence. And when the silence came, it was complete. Not the kind you find in space, not the hush of a sealed room. This silence had weight. It was the kind of silence that holds the last breath of the dying, that presses down when a mother realizes her child won't wake up. It filled everything. I couldn't even hear my own thoughts, and that terrified me more than anything that had come before. Then a sound shattered it, a low hum, familiar, alive. My eyes opened. I was floating in a tank, fluid all around me, thick, cold. I tried to move, but my limbs didn't answer. Tubes snaked into my arms, down my throat, into my spine. Machines blinked around me. Some were clearly mechanical, others, they looked grown. I wasn't alone. Through the murky liquid I could see others, shapes, suspended like me, some still, some twitching. One across from me had no skin, just muscle and nerve exposed, and yet he was alive. I watched him blink. A speaker crackled. "You are being broken," the voice said, clinical and sharp. "This is not punishment, this is preparation." Another screen flickered on above me, showing images, memories from my own life. My mother, my first kill. The night I watched a friend bleed out on a cold steel floor. A woman I once loved, her face blurred now by time. The voice continued. "Emotion is the first infection. It clouds judgment. You are not here to feel. You are here to become." Electricity surged through the fluid. I screamed, or tried to. The pain was unlike anything I'd ever known. Not just physical. It dug into my head, myself, stripping away comfort, memory, identity. They were scraping the soul clean. Hours passed. Maybe days. I don't know. Time twisted in that place. Sometimes the fluid would heat until it felt like boiling acid. Sometimes it froze until I thought my cells would shatter. Sometimes it just pulsed, like a heartbeat, like the tank itself was alive. And always the voice returned. "You are not special. You are not chosen. You are raw material." At one point, I saw one of the others twitch violently. His tank cracked. Red seeped into the fluid. His body convulsed, then stilled. Just like that. The screen above him turned black. A second later, the tank folded inward like crushed foil and vanished into the floor. No one reacted. No alarms, no sirens, just deletion. I thought I would break next, but I didn't. Something in me, something old and quiet and angry, held on. Even as they burned memories from my mind, even as they poured images of failure and guilt and loss into my brain like acid, I held on. I didn't scream anymore. I stopped blinking. I stopped reacting. And one day, the tank drained. I collapsed to the floor, gasping, slick with biofluid, skin raw and red. My muscles twitched. My lungs burned. I looked around. There were fewer tanks now, and across from me another figure stood, naked, shivering, eyes burning with the same red fire I'd seen in theirs. We looked at each other. No words, just recognition. The forge had begun to work. The next phase was the crucible. They didn't call it that, but that's what it was. We were dropped into an environment with no instructions, a jungle world, hot, wet, dangerous, not a training sim, a real world, real predators, Real hunger. 12 of us. The same ones who survived the tanks. They gave us no food, no weapons, just our bodies, still aching from the transformation. We were told one thing. Only 8 return. No rules. No teams. No guidance. Just survive. Some tried to group up. I didn't. Not at first. The first kill happened within an hour. Not from one of the monsters. Not some alien predator. It was one of us. Snapped another recruit's neck over a drink of rainwater. I watched from a distance. Took note. Memorized his face. His stance. The way he moved. He didn't last long. That night, the jungle lit up with screams. Things moved in the trees. Not animals. Not quite. Something else. Test subjects, maybe. Former recruits. Whatever they were fast. Too fast. One dragged a woman up into the canopy. Her screams ended quick. By the third night, we were 6. No one spoke. Talking meant weakness. Sound meant death. We stopped being people. We became hunters. I learned to read movement like language, to hear the difference between branches swaying and something breathing behind them. I learned how to kill quietly, efficiently. One night, I woke to find one of the others standing over me with a sharp rock. He hesitated. That was his mistake. The rock ended up in his throat. By dawn, only 5 of us remained. A ship descended. No sound, no lights, just a black triangle blotting out the stars. A voice spoke once more. Return. We climbed aboard without question. We didn't ask where the others went. We knew. Back in the station, or whatever it was, they didn't congratulate us. They didn't give us food or rest. They gave us armor, fitted to our bodies. Black, silent, alive. It wrapped around us like memory. Once it sealed, it didn't come off. Not entirely. The helmet fused to my neural input. I could see in ways I never had. Heat, sound, emotion, fear. Yes, fear. We could read it now, like color. They called it Instinct Layer 7, the ability to detect threats before they happened, the fear signature of other life forms. A few of us threw up the first time. The world was too sharp now. Every moment, every glance, every whisper felt clearer. Too clear. But clarity was the point. Then came the final trial. We were told only this. Kill what cannot be killed. Dropped on a planet with no name. The sky was orange. The ground cracked. The air smelled like sulfur and oil. The thing was waiting. It didn't hide. It didn't stalk. It stood there, tall as a dropship, shaped like a centipede, and a nightmare had a child. It moved like sound, spoke in broken languages. One of us charged. It tore him in half before his foot hit the dirt. Another used a plasma lance, got one limb off, then got pulled underground, 3 gone in seconds. The rest of us didn't retreat, because we couldn't. The Forge didn't allow retreat. We split up, flanked, adapted. I remembered how it moved, how it shifted. I anticipated its slide, and when it came for me, I didn't run. I welcomed it, lured it into a cavern, narrow, tight, limited movement. One of the others, the same one who stood across from me after the tank, blocked its exit, burned it with thermite, slowed it just enough. I leapt from above, blade drawn, the same one they gave me. It sang in my hand as I struck, straight through the creature's skull. It didn't die with a scream, it whimpered. And then, silence. The true silence, the kind that came when something terrible realized it had met something worse. We returned, fewer still, and we stood in the chamber again, the same one from before. This time, the 8 of them stood around us, not as teachers, as equals. The tall one stepped forward. "You are cut," he said. "Now you carve." And they gave us names. Not real names, not human ones. Designations, like blades. Mine was Thorn 3, A whisper, a weapon. I had no past now, no unit, no rank, just missions, just purpose. And when we were deployed, demons wept. They didn't tell us where we were going. That was the first rule. No names, no coordinates, no mission briefings. Only a message carved into our dropship's interior wall. Speak nothing. Leave nothing. Become the silence. Our target was already marked. A zone black region on the edge of dead space. No comms traffic for 6 months. Last report from the colony read, "They walk inside our thoughts." After that, nothing. No evacuation signal, no distress beacon. Just silence. We dropped at midnight. Not that it mattered. The sky was a permanent twilight. Everything bathed in red mist, like the sun had bled out centuries ago. Trees here didn't sway. They bent, like they were listening. Like they already knew we'd come. My squad was 6. All forged. All cut. All silent. We didn't speak because we didn't need to. Our helmets synced. Thought linked. One look was enough. One glance carried every meaning. We moved through the forest like ghosts. Thorn 1 led. Always first. No fear signature. Nothing. Like his soul had been carved out and replaced with stone. Thorn 5 brought the scanner, a biopsych unit that didn't just read life forms. It felt them. Every time it pulsed, I felt it too. Not as sound, not as a light. As a sensation in the back of my skull, like someone breathing on my brain. The village was gone before we got there. Or, wrong. The buildings still stood. Houses, a small tower, power cores flickering under static. But no people. No signs of struggle either. No blood, no wreckage. Just absence, as if every human had been gently plucked out of time. We split. I took the east end, near a half-crushed comms station. Everything was still. My boots crunched ash underfoot. Windows stared back like hollow eyes. Then the whisper started. Not in my ears, in my thoughts. It said my name, not Thorn 3, my real name. The one they scraped away in the forge. The one I hadn't heard in years. I froze. I don't freeze. None of us do, but hearing that name, feeling it echo through my skull like a forgotten prayer, made something old twitch in my chest. I scanned the area. Nothing. But the scanner pulsed. Fear signature. Close. Human adjacent. Wrong. I turned to move under and saw her, standing in the doorway of a crumbling house. No heat signature. No breath. But her face, my mother. She smiled like she used to. Soft. Gentle. She'd been dead for 9 years. Burned in the Zira Prime uprising. But there she was. Same eyes, same voice, same clothes. I didn't move. I knew it wasn't her. Every cell in my body screamed it. Still, I didn't move. Because whatever it was, it knew me. Knew what I'd buried. Knew what name still flickered somewhere deep inside all the cutting and burning and killing. She spoke. It's not too late. Come home. I aimed my weapon. My hands didn't shake. But something inside me did. She blinked. Her eyes turned black, mouth unhinged. Something crawled from her throat, a slick, jointless creature with no eyes and 100 fingers. It screamed without sound and leapt. I fired. The round hit her. It, mid-jump, it melted before hitting the ground. Thorn 4's voice pinged through the comlink. Confirmed breach, elusive type, human mimicry, psychological weaponization. I responded with a single pulse. Engaged. Cleaned. We regrouped at the tower. 4 of us. Thorn 6 was missing. No scream, no alert, no final ping. He was just gone. We entered the main hall. Scanners at full sweep. That's when we found the message. Carved into the steel wall with fingernails. It read, I buried myself so it couldn't find me. Below it, a body, unrecognizable, wrapped in wires, mouth sewn shut with melted cable, hands fused to the floor, but alive. Barely. Thorn 1 stepped forward, kneeled, tilted his head. The body twitched, its eyes opened, all black. No iris, no pupil, just void. It looked right at me and smiled, not scared, proud. And then it spoke, with my voice, the one I used before the forge. "It's good you came back," I fired point blank. No hesitation this time. The thing laughed as it died. The body went still. Then the tower began to shake, not from an explosion, from sound. A low, guttural hum, the same one we'd heard in the forge, but broken, warped. Thorn 2 collapsed, screaming. Blood poured from her ears. Her armor couldn't stop it. Something had bypassed her defenses, gone straight into her mind. Thorn 1 didn't blink, didn't falter. He raised his arm. A single pulse shot from his gauntlet. Thorn 2's body dropped, silent. We don't leave anyone behind. We don't let them turn. The rest of us ran. The tower wasn't collapsing. It was changing. Metal stretched like flesh. Floors melted into tendrils. Screams echoed through the walls, not from humans, but from whatever had worn them. We made it out. But the planet wasn't done. All around us, figures rose. Dozens, hundreds, all with human faces, all wrong. Some wore our uniforms. Some wore rags. Some wore the faces of the dead. I saw my squad from Zero Prime, all of them. I'd buried them myself. Now they stood, smiling, mocking. I didn't wait, neither did Thorn 1. We tore through them like wolves. No hesitation, no emotion, no mercy. Every hit felt like stabbing my own past. Every face I cut felt like a memory sliced free. And that was the point. This wasn't just a mission. It was a test, not by them, by the thing beneath this world. A being old enough to remember when stars still whispered to each other. It didn't want to win. It wanted to corrupt, twist soldiers into puppets. Turn pain into power. We reached the extraction point with 2 left, me and Thorn 5. He was limping, one arm gone, but alive. Thorn 1 was gone. He'd stayed behind. Not because he wanted to, because he had to. He whispered one line before cutting the comm link. Become what they fear. And then silence. Again. Back aboard the carrier, no one greeted us. No debrief, no medics, just a sealed chamber and 2 chairs. A screen flickered on. Black text, 1 sentence. "Did it learn your name?" I stared at it, felt the answer rise. Yes, but I typed, "No." The screen blinked. Green light. Another mission queued. Coordinates unknown. Payload classified. Departure immediate. Thorn 5 and I looked at each other. No words. We walked to the armory. The blades were already waiting. Still warm, still alive, still singing. We suited up. And once more, we vanished into the black, because we are not here to be remembered. We are here to make the monsters forget what it means to hope. The next mission came faster than the last. No briefing, no rest, no time to ask questions that no one ever answers. Just another set of coordinates burned into my retinal feed. Another silent launch. Another drop into a place we were never meant to return from. Only this time, it wasn't the void. It was home. Earth. Not the shining core world from the propaganda feeds. Not the polished cities where politicians smiled and drones cleaned the streets. This was the underground Earth. The places left behind after the flood riots, after the food wars, after the blackouts turned into black zones, districts forgotten by governments, but not by those who profited off pain. Our dropship came in hard and fast. No lights, no transponders. The landing zone was an old metro station half sunken in collapsed concrete and bones. No exaggeration. Bones. Civilian skulls. Children. Elderly. No soldiers. Just the remains of those who never made it out before the thing moved in. What thing? We didn't know. Command just called it Entity 74. What we did know, something inhuman was breeding in the dark. nesting, feeding off psychic residue, if the reports were true, feeding off memories, off regret, the kind of parasite that doesn't bite the flesh, it bites the soul. Thorn 5 and I moved together. Still no words. We didn't need them. We weren't brothers. We weren't friends. We were survivors of the same furnace. That makes something more dangerous than loyalty. It makes understanding. We moved through the metro ruins in complete sync, clearing rooms, checking corners, watching the walls for movement. But this place was dead quiet, and that was wrong. Too wrong. There were signs of life, half-eaten meals, clothes still warm, terminal screens still showing login activity from less than 20 minutes ago. But no people, not even bodies this time. It was like they'd been peeled away. That's when I saw the first mirror. It was just standing there in the hallway, a full-length glass mirror in a rusted metal frame. No dust, no cracks, perfectly clean. I stared at it. My reflection stared back. But something was off. It was me. The armor, the helmet, the stance. But the eyes weren't mine. They were blue. I haven't had natural eye color since the forge. The neural fire burned that away, turned everything red. Cold. But in that mirror, I saw myself before the cuts, before the missions, before the silence. And for 1 second, just one, I felt a pull back to who I was. I stepped closer. The reflection didn't follow. It stood still. Then it smiled and said, "You don't have to keep pretending." I fired. The mirror shattered, shards flying through the air like frozen screams. Thorn 5 came around the corner a second later. Weapon up. Ready. But I just stood there, breathing hard, heart pounding. He said nothing. But I felt it. The data ping. Concern. Not for my safety, for my stability. Because the Forge doesn't make heroes. It makes weapons. And weapons aren't allowed to remember who they were. We kept moving. Deeper into the tunnels. That's where we found them. Huddled in a side room. 15 civilians, shaking, crying. Not illusions, not mimics. Real. My scanner didn't lie. No warp in their fear signatures. No biological anomalies. They were alive and terrified. They stared at us like ghosts had walked into their hiding hole. One of them, a young boy no older than 10, stepped forward. His face was gaunt, pale, but his eyes held something strange, not fear, recognition. "You're late," he said. His voice was flat, dead. I raised my weapon. Thorn 5 stepped in front of me. He did a slow scan. The results pinged back. All normal, no infection, no psychic contamination. But my gut twisted. The boy looked up at me and said my name again. My real name. Not the one the Forge gave me. Not Thorn 3, the name I hadn't spoken since the first cut. The others didn't hear it. Only I did. I knew then. This wasn't just an enemy. This was a trap. I motioned to Thorn 5. "Evac, priority red, get the civilians out." He hesitated, just for a second. Then he nodded. I turned back to the boy. But he was gone. So were the others. The room was empty again. I blinked, scanned, nothing. But the door was still open. And down the hall, more mirrors. Each one reflected a different version of me. In one, I was a father, holding a child, smiling. In another, I was dead on a battlefield, body rotting. In another, I was laughing, normal, human. They weren't illusions. They were options. The thing wanted me to choose, to remember. Because once I remembered, I'd become like it, a creature of doubt, of regret. That's how it fed. That's how it grew. I heard a voice then, behind me. Soft, feminine, the kind of voice you don't hear. You feel. "It doesn't have to end like this," I turned slowly. And saw her. The one I used to love. The one I left behind to become this. She hadn't aged. She looked just like the last time I saw her, crying in the rain, screaming that I was throwing everything away. I waited, she said. Her eyes were glassy. Too perfect. She stepped closer. I raised my blade, but she touched it, just touched it, and the weapon dimmed. The metal went cold. That had never happened before. I tried to pull away, but my arm didn't respond. She leaned in, whispered into my helmet. "You don't need to be their monster anymore." And for 1 second, I believed her. I felt the forge slip, the silence crack, and something inside me screamed. That scream didn't come from me. It came from her, because I'd grabbed the backup blade from my belt and stabbed it straight through her stomach. Her face twisted. No more beauty. No more love, only teeth. Rows and rows of them. The thing shrieked as it collapsed, its illusion crumbling like ash. The walls shook. Reality snapped back, and I saw where I really was. Not in a room, not in a tunnel. In a nest, a living one. Flesh walls, bone pillars. Thousands of faces stitched into the surface, all screaming in silence. And in the center, the core, the true form. A mass of limbs and mouths and regret. I didn't hesitate. I called in the payload. Thorn 5 responded instantly. His signal blinked green. Detonation in 10 seconds. I sprinted out, blades dripping with the remnants of the lie, my mind still buzzing, still hearing voices. But I ran anyway. Ran because if I stayed 1 second longer, I knew I'd lose myself for good. Thorn 5 was already at the LZ, holding the evac door open. He looked at me. No emotion. Just understanding. We didn't need to say it. He'd seen something too. Something that nearly pulled him under. We boarded. The bomb went off as the ship cleared the crater. The shockwave rolled under us like a wave of screaming glass. We didn't watch it burn, because we didn't look back. That's not what weapons do. After the mission, I sat in the debrief cell alone. No light, no sound, just black walls and one screen. It blinked once. A question appeared. Did it find your truth? I stared, then typed, "Not all of it." The screen went dark. Then another message appeared. "You've seen the mirror. Now burn what it showed you." A box slid out of the wall. Inside, a new blade. Silver. But this one was different. It shimmered with something old, something familiar, because I recognized the markings. Not military. Not from the forge. But mine. From before. Carved into the hilt was my real name. The one I'd buried. The one they tried to cut out. I didn't know if this was a reward or a warning. But I took the blade anyway. And as I held it, the silence inside me whispered, "You're no longer just what we made. You're what they fear we've lost." The new blade changed everything. It didn't hum like the others. Didn't pulse with that manufactured rhythm the forge designed. It was silent, in the old way. Heavy in the hand, light in the mind. It didn't want to guide me. It wanted me to choose. That was new. Weapons from the forge don't ask. They obey. This one waited. I spent 6 days in isolation. No missions, no comms, no contact, a test. They wanted to see if I'd lose control. Break. Snap. But silence had never frightened me. Not since the tank. Not since the jungle trial, not since the first time I saw a god thing weep under human hands. I embraced the quiet, because that's where I could still feel the last thread of who I used to be. That thread hadn't broken, just buried. And now, with this new blade, it was surfacing. On the 7th day, the call came. No voice, just a pulse through the floor. One long tone, one word carved into my retinal HUD. Ascension. The chamber I entered was different from the forge. No red lights, no black walls, no symbols screaming from the steel. This place was white, pure, clinical, like the inside of a hospital mixed with a mausoleum. 8 chairs stood in a circle. 7 filled. All operatives, all forged. None I'd met before. They looked at me like they already knew me. They probably did. Data flows between them without filters. The hive, they call it. Not officially, of course. That's just what the soldiers who whisper about us call the connection. The forged are never truly alone. I took the last seat. Across from me sat a man. No armor, no weapons, just a robe, skin so pale it almost glowed, bald head, eyes like empty wells. He looked soft. But that softness was a mask. I could feel it. He was the one who issued the final cuts, the ones that broke identities like glass under a boot. He smiled. "You held the mirror and didn't flinch," he said. "No small talk, no preamble. You saw the parasite's truth, you resisted, and now you've been given a choice." The blade, my blade, he gestured toward it, resting across my lap like a sleeping wolf. "You can stay," he continued. "Keep serving. Stay in the silence. Be a perfect weapon." He leaned forward. "Or you can lead." That word caught in my chest. Lead. We don't lead. We're not officers. We don't give orders. We execute them. "We have a threat," he said. "One we can't fight the old way." He raised his hand. A hologram bloomed in the air. A planet I didn't recognize. Blue-green, scarred with craters and cracks like it had been struck by a god's hammer. "Designation, Site Enviro," he said. "Black zone. No return missions." That phrase made everyone shift. No return meant what it always meant. Hell. He continued. "A forge facility existed there once. Before your time. Before even mine. They called it the Mouth." I frowned behind my visor. I'd heard that name. In whispers. Stories of a program that was shut down for going too far, even by our standards. "No survivors," he said. "Except one." The room froze. One of the first forged. "A prototype. An alpha." He tapped the air again. A figure appeared. Tall, armored, but not like us. Older, heavier, covered in symbols no one uses anymore. A monster in human shape. "He broke the program," the man said. "Escaped. Hid." He looked at me. "Now he's calling others." I didn't ask who. I already knew. Rogue forged. Some who never fully broke. Some who remembered too much. Some who didn't resist the whispers. And one alpha to lead them. "The silence doesn't reach there anymore," the man said. "We need someone who's touched the edge. And came back." He pointed to me. "To kill what we can't name." We dropped 4 hours later. Same black dropship. Same gut-deep hum. But this time? No squad. Just me. And the blade. Mine. The ship didn't land. It just let me go. Ejected me into the upper atmosphere. Like a god hurling lightning down to Earth. I hit the surface like a meteor. No parachute. The armor took the impact, mostly. My left leg buckled, but the nanoframe locked it back in place. Pain is background noise now. The sky above me was gray and pulsing, like a heartbeat spread across the clouds. The world smelled of ash and metal and rot. I walked. Each step echoed louder than the last, like the planet knew I'd come. The mouth wasn't a building. It was a wound. A hole in the planet itself, jagged and breathing. Smoke poured out of it. Heat, too. But not like fire, like rage, the kind of heat that remembers betrayal. I entered without hesitation. Because hesitation gets you killed. The tunnels were tight at first, black, wet. Then they widened. And I saw the carvings, not in stone, in bone, human skulls lining the walls like tiles. Each one engraved with names, not just random ones, forged names, all crossed out. Every step forward felt like walking through a graveyard of my own kind. And then I saw him, standing at the center of a massive chamber, surrounded by candles made of marrow. He was everything the man had shown, and more. Taller, meaner, ancient. His armor was fused to his body, no helmet, just eyes, black and burning, with fire leaking from the corners. "I've been watching you," he said. His voice was like thunder underwater. "You carry their leash, but you've chewed through half of it already." I didn't speak. He didn't need me to. "I was the first," he said. "Before they perfected the silence, before they figured out how to break us all the way." He took a step forward. "They tried with me. They failed." I raised my blade. His smile cracked his lips. "Let's see what they made you forget." He moved faster than anything that size should. I blocked. Barely. The impact sent me flying into the wall. Pain flared, but I stayed upright. He came again. This time I ducked, slid under his strike, and slashed. The blade sang. It cut deeper than it should have, through armor, through reinforced flesh. He roared, laughed. "You kept your name," he growled. I froze. He knew. Of course he knew. He was the first, the prototype. He still remembered his own. And he saw that I hadn't buried mine deep enough. "You think that blade makes you strong?" He spat. "It's not a gift, it's a curse." I lunged. We clashed again. Again! The chamber shook with every strike. Bone dust filled the air. Candles fell. Names screamed from the walls. And still we fought, until I pinned him. Blade to throat. My heart pounding. My mind raging. "You could be more," he said, voice cracked. "You don't have to be their weapon." He reached up, touched the side of my helmet, and I saw it. His memory, his first kill, the lab, the doctors, the way they smiled as they tore pieces of him out, the way they clapped when he screamed. They turned him into a god and chained him in the basement of history. I saw it all, and for a second, I understood. Then I killed him, fast, clean, final, because understanding isn't an excuse, and I'm not here to redeem anything. I'm here to end it. The chamber fell silent. The candles burned out. The names on the wall faded, and in the ashes I left one more carving. Mine, but not Thorn 3, the real one. Because if the silence is going to use me, then it's going to remember who I was first. The Forge didn't contact me after I killed the Alpha. No transmission, no retrieval signal, no congratulatory code buried in a data feed. Just that familiar, bone-deep silence. I waited for the ship. It never came. I wandered for a day, maybe more. The days on Site N0 don't move like normal. The light doesn't shift, the sky doesn't cycle. It's stuck in a kind of bleeding dusk, like the planet never fully wakes or sleeps. Eventually, I found a ridge. Nothing special, just high enough to see the wound I'd come from. The mouth. Still breathing. Still steaming. Still whispering. And I sat. For the first time since the tanks, since the jungle, since the missions that turned into graves, I sat without purpose. I had the blade with me. My blade, not theirs. Not the standard issue bone cutter or plasma shiv. This one shimmered with truth. It didn't obey. It waited. I laid it beside me and stared at the horizon. My armor hissed softly as it powered down sections I wasn't using. The helmet retracted with a quiet click. Breathing fresh air, even air this tainted, was foreign now. I expected the ghosts to follow. They didn't. I expected the Forge to come retrieve the body. They didn't. I expected orders. Nothing. The silence wasn't a mission anymore. It was a sentence. I was the only witness to what happened down there, to what the Alpha said, what he showed me, what I saw. I wasn't a tool anymore, and that terrified them more than anything else. You see, the Forge doesn't fear failure. It fears memory. A weapon that remembers it once had a soul? That's not a weapon. That's a threat. I left the ridge on the third day, made my way back through the ash fields, past the sunken ruins, back toward the drop zone where I'd first come down like a hammer. It took time. There were things still moving through the land. Pieces of the Alpha's war form. Shadow mass, limb slicks, broken frames whispering names in forgotten languages. I didn't fight them. They avoided me. Something about the blade. It glowed now, pale, soft, but it glowed. Like it knew it was the only light left in this place. I started thinking, really thinking, about what he said. The Alpha. He didn't ask me to join him. He didn't beg. He wasn't trying to win. He wanted me to understand, to see what happens when you build something for war, and then leave it to rot in the dark. What would I become, I wondered, if they left me here too? What would happen to Thorn 3 if I had no missions left to complete? Who would I be if I stopped killing? That question sat with me the whole walk. It wasn't comfort. It was a wound. Because deep down, I knew the answer, and I didn't like it. I found the signal post half buried in debris near the old LZ. A long-range beacon. Damaged, but not dead. Something primitive compared to what the Forge used now. I tapped into it, hardwired my suit's systems. I sent out one pulse, just one, coordinates, no message, no ID. Then I waited. 1 day. 2, then a ship came. Not Forge, civilian grade, banged up hull, scratched paint. Half its lights flickered like it was trying to die quietly. The pilot was a woman. Gray hair, sharp eyes, no questions. "You him?" she asked, stepping down the ramp. I nodded. She jerked a thumb at the hold. "Get in. I ain't waiting." That was it. No ceremony, no debrief. Just a tired freighter and a pilot who didn't care who I was, what I'd done, or how many times I'd crawled out of hell. We broke atmosphere in silence. And for the first time, I looked back. Not just at the planet, at everything. I saw the tank, the cuts, the screams, the kills. I saw Thorn 2's body slumped on the ground, Thorn 1's last stand, the mirror in the tunnels, my name scratched into the blade's hilt, all of it still burning behind my eyes. When we hit subspace, the pilot looked back at me. "You were one of them, huh?" I didn't answer. She chuckled. "Figured. You move like someone who ain't sure the world's real anymore." She poured 2 drinks. Rough stuff. Hit like fire. I didn't flinch. "Where you headed?" she asked. I shrugged. "Hiding?" "Not sure." She nodded. "Yeah, me neither." We didn't talk much after that. She let me ride, didn't ask why a forged operative was sitting in her cargo bay, still dripping smoke and memory. Didn't ask about the sword I kept strapped across my lap, humming like it had a heartbeat. Didn't ask why I didn't sleep. People like her, the ones who live on the edge of mapped space, they've seen too much to be curious anymore. Weeks passed. We drifted system to system. She picked up odd jobs, cargo runs, message drops, even smuggled a few families out of a collapsing moon colony where the food had started fighting back. I stayed quiet. Watched. Helped when I could. Sometimes I saw children. They didn't stare. They looked at me the way animals look at fire, not with awe, with respect, with distance. They knew. I thought the Forge might come for me eventually. Send a cleaner, a reclaimer. One of those silent black ships with no windows and no questions. But they didn't, because I wasn't a risk. I was a message. They knew word would get out. Whispers of a forged soldier gone rogue, walking the fringe with a sword that doesn't speak their language. They wanted that fear. It served them. It kept others in line. The silence doesn't erase mistakes. It wears them like armor. One night the pilot asked me the question I'd been waiting for. "What's your name?" Not my call sign, not Thorn 3. My name? The one I wrote in the ashes. The one the parasite whispered in my ear like a curse. I said it, Soft, careful, like it might break. She nodded. Good, she said. You should keep that. Ain't many things we get to keep. I didn't tell her everything. Didn't tell her about the Alpha, the Blade, the whispering walls, the dead gods that live in machines we built ourselves. She didn't need to know. She already understood. People like her, the real ones, they've been fighting a war the maps don't show for generations. They don't need monsters like me to fix it. But sometimes, it helps to know we're out here. That if the dark comes again, something worse will crawl out to meet it. Something that remembers. And me? I don't know what I am now. Not a weapon, not yet a man. I walk the edge. I go where the fear is loudest. Sometimes I stop things before they grow teeth. Sometimes I just listen. Because the truth is, the monsters are still coming. They've learned. They've adapted. They're smarter now. Meaner. But so am I. The Forge may have made me to kill. But I chose to remember. And that makes me dangerous in ways they never planned for. So when the next hell opens, and it will, don't call the fleet. Don't call the diplomats. Don't call the prophets. You'll know what to do. You'll whisper a name, and I'll be there. Blade in hand, memories sharp, and silence following like a shadow. Because humans once built monsters to fight demons. But now we walk alone. And even demons know. Some ghosts don't fade. They hunt.